Happy Tuesday, Internet land. It's your boy Ced coming to you live here from Tampa in the lab. Super duper shout out to my Facebook familia, my blogging familia, my podcast familia, my YouTube familia. I hope you guys are having a phenomenal Tuesday and are out there crushing your week. I wanted to come in here really quickly to talk about the ugly truth about network marketing that some leaders never, ever talk about. That you as an entrepreneur need to know. Now, this is extremely important. So if I were you, I would pay very close attention to this. And I'm speaking from experience. And a lot of people don't adhere to these particular rules. And these particular rules could cost you a significant amount of money. Now, let's get right into it. A lot of leaders out there in our industry talk about making money. We're in the making money niche. We're all about empowering entrepreneurs, showing them how to make money all over the world, whether it be in the United States, Canada, Belize, wherever you might be. But most leaders do not ever talk about keeping money. Most talk about making it, but most don't talk about keeping it. And majority skip the particular topic that I'm going to share with each and every one of you today, that I think that if this was shared with many people a long time ago, that a lot of people would be in a different position. So what is that particular topic? Next week, I believe it's next week, right? Where's my calendar at? Yeah, next week. Next week is July the 15th. July the 15th is next week. Now, what does that mean to you as an entrepreneur in English? July the 15th is next week. Here's what that means. First of all, because of the corona, because of the quote unquote virus and things stopping so many things around the world, that the government decided to give us an extension. They decided to give us all an extension without a penalty when it comes down to paying your taxes. So come July the 15th, your taxes are due. Now, here's what most entrepreneurs inside of direct selling and network marketing do, which is unfortunate. Most networkers, they go out there and they make the money on a regular basis. They make $1,000 a week, $2,000 a week, 20 grand a month, 30 grand a month, and they act as if that money is going to be coming in forever. So they get up to 20 grand a month and they spend 20 grand a month. They make 10 grand a month, they spend 10 grand a month. They make 5 grand a month, they spend 5 grand a month. Totally forgetting about the fact that they have a quote unquote job, and at that quote unquote job, they are automatically taking those taxes out. We as entrepreneurs, we have to be disciplined, right? And this discipline can become extremely expensive for those people who tend to ignore the discipline. That's why this video is so important. So here's what I mean. Come next week, July the 15th, your 2019 taxes are due. So let's say that you owe the man 20 grand, okay? You made 60 grand last year, from the comfort of your home. 30% of 60 grand is right around 18 grand, okay? That's about a tax bracket you're gonna be in between 30 or 40% in some way, shape, or form, but let's just use 30% as the baseline for this particular number. You made 60 grand last year part-time in your direct selling company. 30% of that is 18 grand, okay? July the 15th, that $18,000 is due, but you do not have the 18 grand. Okay, you don't have the 18 grand. Now, the first question you have to ask yourself is, why don't you have the 18 grand? That's the first $1 million question that you have to ask yourself. If you made 60 grand last year part-time with your home-based business and you have a regular JOB, the first question that you have to ask yourself is, why don't I have the 18 grand that I have to pay the man? Now, you can feel free to play the Wesley Snipes rule of business or the Chris Tucker rule of business, but you're going to be in jail just like Wesley Snipes was as well. So if I were you, I would skip that process. You say, hey, Ced, I don't have the 18 grand. Here's what happens when you do not have the 18 grand that they want. What most people don't realize is these penalties and interest will gobble you to pieces. The penalties and interest for when you do not pay the man the money that you owe them, it will gobble you to pieces. So I did a little example here. I just did 18 grand a minute ago, but I'm gonna take it to 25, right? Because I did this little example that I wrote out. So let's say that you made 25,000, right? Let's say that you owe 25 grand. If you owe 25 grand come next week and you don't pay it, You don't have it. You're just like, I'm bucking. This Corona. Money's been slow. I'm bucking. It's going to be what it's going to be, and they can come get it, and I don't care. Okay. Let me help you out here really quickly. There's a couple of things that I don't play with. I don't play with things that have 3 letters in their agencies. You know, FBI, DEA, CIA, IRS, SEC, FCC, like anything with 3 letters in it, we stay away because they can change your life. But if you owe them 25 grand, right, do you understand that every single month, you have a 5% non-payment penalty? Every single month. 5% non-payment penalty every month. So on that 25 grand that you did not pay them, every single month, they're going to charge you a 5% failure to pay penalty. Now, that has nothing to do with the interest. That has nothing to do with the interest. It's 5% failure to pay every single month. The interest can be anywhere between 0.5% all the way up to 25%. But if we just use the 5% failure to pay, and you went a whole 12 months, and didn't pay it, well, that $25,000 that you owe them, 5% of 25 grand is $1,250 a month. That's $1,250 a month. $1,250 a month and a penalty because you did not pay them. 12 months later, if you decide to write the check, now you owe them $25,000 plus another $12,500 in penalties. That has nothing to do with the interest. So now your $25,000 just turned into $37,500 plus the interest. You're probably at about $45,000, $45,000 to $50,000. Easy. So now you just took 25 grand, boom, and just doubled it. You just doubled it because you delayed it for a year. Now, if you're smart, here's what smart entrepreneurs do. First of all, if you are incorporated, you should be paying it every quarter anyway. Every quarter, you should be paying every quarter. If you've got an LLC or corporation, you should be paying it every quarter. But if you're not doing that, here's the reality of life. The reality of life is that where you get your direct deposits at. Okay, here's a small little discipline that you can do that could really truly change your life. Where you get your direct deposits at for your particular direct selling and or MLM company. Let's say that you bank with Wells Fargo, for an example. You should have a checking account and a tax account. You should have your checking account, your savings account, and a tax account. Just a flat tax account only. Okay, so if you got paid $1,000 this week, technically only about $700 is yours. That's it. So you should take $700 and put into your regular checking account or savings account, but $300 should go right into the tax account. Don't even think about it. See, the challenge that we have as entrepreneurs is that we see the money and we think it's all ours. We see the money, we want to touch it all. We see the 20 grand, we want to touch the 20 grand. We see the 100 grand, we want to touch the 100 grand. We see the 10 grand, we want to touch the 10 grand. It's not your 10 grand. It's not your 50 grand. It's not your 100 grand. It does not matter how you feel about the economy. It does not matter how you feel about the government. It does not matter how you feel about taxes in general. You can feel free to buck on this, and they will come knocking at your door and they will take your shit. And there's nothing like a 3-letter agency knocking at your door, taking your shit, okay? Yanking up your cars, freezing up your accounts, doing all sorts of goofy stuff. These penalties, the interest, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing to play with. Now, they will give you one time. They will give you a one-time reprieve. One time. So if you've gone 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and this was the first time that you had this issue, they will give you one time and they will waive the penalties. They won't waive the interest. They will waive the penalties. Feel free to ask me how I know. This happened to me back in 2005, I believe it was. Yeah, 2005. You know, it was like, I owed the man like 40-something thousand or whatever. And the penalties and interest was like 30-something grand. I was like, man, this is retarded. I just took 40 grand into 70. This is crazy. My accountant wrote up a nice little pretty letter, blah, 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 blah. They washed it and they reminded me one time. You only got one time. Now, this is 2005, so this was 15 years ago, right? One time. That means that if next week they don't get this big old crazy ridiculous check that they supposed to get, ain't no doing no favors for said. Ain't no doing no favors for you. Ain't no doing no favors for nobody. They want their money. As a leader in direct selling, as a leader in network marketing, there's two things that you always want to make sure that your team is doing. You want to make sure that your team is making money, but you also want to make sure that your team is keeping money. You want to make sure that your team is making money, but you also want to make sure that your team is keeping money. Okay, because making it is one thing, keeping it is a whole different conversation. But most people don't get that. They go out and they buy a bunch of stuff to look a certain way, and they totally forget that I owe the man, I gotta pay this, I gotta pay that. There's nothing worse than people who live and who they used to be 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. Great, but you ain't paid your taxes in 3 years. You ain't paid your taxes in 4 years. I don't know how you sleep at night if you ain't paid your taxes in 3, 4, 5 years. I have no idea how you sleep at night, because what you owed them 5 years ago, 50 grand that you owed them 5 years ago, you fast forward 5 years from now, that 50 grand could be 150 grand. Just because they ain't called you, don't mean that it ain't accruing. Don't mean that it ain't accruing, okay? Because sooner or later, they will get around to it. And when they get around to it, it's not gonna be fun. So for those of you that are playing duck, duck, goose, look, let me give you a little clue. They just wanna talk. Don't avoid them. If you owe them some do-re-mi and you don't have it, call them. But don't like walk into a IRS place on your own, because that's like, you know, getting a shotgun put to your mouth. It's a bad idea. You need to hire somebody. You need to hire a lawyer that has a power of attorney that does all the talking for you, and you stay the freak out of the equation. You stay out of the equation. You don't answer no questions, okay? And you let the lawyer do the talking. Don't you walk up in there and get a shotgun put in your mouth, because you will walk out there and you will get greased up really, really good. But you got to make sure. You got to make sure that your people on your team, they understand this information. We can get on conference calls and talk about lead gen and marketing and this and that and all these different things. And those things are great. But most leaders just don't. Most leaders aren't out there educating their team on, hey, you made X amount of dollars, did you put this aside for the man? You made X amount of dollars, did you put this aside for the man? You made X amount of dollars, did you put this aside for the man? Just do it weekly. You get paid monthly, do it monthly. You made 20 grand this month because you get paid once a month in the unilevel or whatever the case may be. You made 20 grand this month. You know right off rip. You know right off rip about 6 grand of that isn't yours. So if you know right off rip 6 grand of that isn't yours, stop spending the 20. It doesn't matter what's going on in your world. See, what we have to start to realize is that the money that you make a lot of times isn't the money that you need to live on. The money that you make isn't the money that you need to live on. And if you're making 20 grand a month and you're spending 20 grand a month, you need to change some things in your life. If you're making 10 grand a month and you're spending 10 grand a month, you need to change some things in your life. If you're making 5 grand a month and you're spending 5 grand a month, you need to change some things in your life. If you have a job right now, and you're building your network marketing business part-time, which is literally about 98% of all people in direct selling, 98% plus of all people in direct selling are doing it on a part-time basis. So if you're doing it on a part-time basis and you know that your job is taking out the taxes and the Social Security and the 401k and the ABC and the DEF and all those miscellaneous things that they're taking out of your check, then you know right off top, it's like you've got to have the discipline to know that they just deposited $600 in my account uncut. 180 of that is not mine. 150 of that is not mine. I got to put it aside, okay? And if you're smart, you're going to put it in something that's going to make you money along the way. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not going to get into any of that, but all I'm going to say is this. If you're smart, you're going to put it in something that's going to constantly be compounding your money at the same time. So when it is time to write that check, not only do you have the money for the 3-letter man, but you made some interest on your own money. See, this is what smart people do. They make interest on their own money before they give it to the man, because guess what the man is doing? But those people that get all excited about refunds, they made interest on your money for 12 months, and then they gave you $2,000 of it back. They gave you $3,000 of it back, and you did a flip. Yay! I told my daughter not too long ago, she was like, Daddy, am I going to have to pay taxes this year? I said, absolutely. Absolutely, you're going to have to pay taxes this year. There's no question about it. The tax bracket that you're going to be in, the extra money that you're making, but I don't want to pay. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Because when you get a refund, all they're doing is sending you back your money. You want to be paying. You want to pay. You want to be happy to cut the check. Because when you are cutting the check, that means you made some do-re-mi. If they sending you some checks back, you probably didn't make the amount that you wanted to make. I don't know if that many people that got a refund that can say that they made the amount of money that they wanted to make in 2019. I got back $2,500, great. But did you make the amount of money that you really wanted to make. Because if you made 150 grand, if you made 200 grand, if you made $1 million, you didn't get back squat. You wrote a check. You wrote a check to the Department of Treasury, and you were super duper happy that you could write the check for number one, and number two, you were even happier that it didn't bounce. Okay? You were happy to be able to write the check, and number two, you were happier that it didn't bounce. But you've got to learn to be disciplined. So educate your team. Educate your team on this discipline, because I can promise you, come next Thursday, next Friday, whatever the case may be, there's going to be a lot of people that totally forgot. There's going to be a lot of people that just buck. There's going to be a lot of people who made X amount of dollars in 2019 and do not have the money to pay. Here's the other thing that you cannot do. Don't go through the whole 12 months. Don't go through 6 or 7 months of the year and have 6 or 7 great months. So right now we're in the month of July, right? Right now we're in the month of July. So technically here, let's run the math. If you've been making 10 grand a month every single month this year, right? So right now we're in July, so you've made 60 grand so far, right? You made 60 grand. About 18 of that should be in the cut somewhere. Like legitimately, 18 grand of it should be in the cut. Let's say that you didn't put any of it in the cut, or you didn't pay any of it into your quarterly taxes, and you spent the 60 grand. And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna make up for it in the last part of the year. That's a bad idea. And let me tell you why it's a bad idea. When you're building a network marketing business, you don't know what's going to change. You don't know if the compensation plan is going to change. You don't know if you're going to lose one of your leaders. You don't know if the customer service becomes horrible. You don't know if they change one of the ingredients in the products. You don't know if the owners does something stupid. Your 10 grand a month could go down to 2 grand a month, just like that. So your 10 grand a month went down to 2 grand a month, but in your mind, your plan was to recoup the money that you didn't put aside for the taxes in the first 6 months out of the year. Okay, bad idea. So now you're in the background with 18 grand in the cut that you know that you got to pay, and then you made another 2 grand a month for the next 6 months. So now that's another 24 grand. Of that, 30% of that, what's that? Another 7 grand. So now you're at 18 plus 7. You owe $25,000, and you didn't put the 25 grand aside. And boom, here comes April 15th next year. This is how crazy this happens. This is how crazy this happens. Now, for those of you that are in America, let me give you a clue. For those of you that are in America, because I've seen a couple of my crypto boys that are on here. First of all, let me say this. I am not a financial advisor. I do not play one on television. I do not play one on YouTube. I do not play one on Facebook either. However, I understand money and I pay attention to it. For those of you that are playing duck, duck, goose with your crypto, bad idea. If you have a Coinbase account, trust me when I tell you, the feds know every single dime that's inside of your Coinbase account. Period. End of story. So if you've got a Coinbase account right now, I don't care what crypto deal that you're doing. I don't care if it's legal. I don't care if it's illegal. It does not matter, because there's a shit ton of illegal ones that are out there. If it's legal or illegal, it does not matter. Every dollar in your Coinbase account, the government knows about it. Every single dollar. Now, you can feel free to not claim it. That's on you. That's on you. But there's a form now on your 2019 taxes, because I had to do it. On your 2019 taxes, it asks you, do you hold any cryptocurrency? Did you sell any? Did you do this? Did you do that? And if you check off no, but you sitting on 100 grand and you made 20 grand in profits, or 50 grand in profits, or 200 grand in profits, or whatever the case may be, and you don't live in Puerto Rico, because there's a couple of things that you can do in Puerto Rico that are a little different. So if you're making a ton of money in crypto, you might want to move, or you might want to get a residence over there, but you got to do your research and find out, the differences. But most people don't have the ability to just uproot themselves and go to a whole nother, go to somewhere like Puerto Rico, right? Don't avoid that little form. Don't avoid the form, okay? Maybe the accountant at HR Block or Jackson Hewitt or whatever, maybe they don't know any better. Maybe they don't think that you have in the crypto or whatever. But as soon as you check off that box, no. As soon as you check off no on that box, you are attesting through penalty and perjury that you are telling the truth. And you signed that. They come back and find out later, it is not a good look, because they're going to get the capital gains tax that they're supposed to get, plus you're going to pay a penalty for lying. Don't play duck, duck, goose with the man. Don't play duck, duck, goose with 3-letter agencies. Just be smart and set aside the money. Just be smart and set aside the money. And if you aren't learning stuff like this from your upline, if you aren't learning stuff like this, in your direct selling company, then you need to learn it from people who are talking about it, who are in a position to say, hey, this is probably what you should be doing to treat things a little bit differently. And look, every upline isn't going to talk about this. Everybody doesn't talk about this. But one thing that I will say is this. We have to be smart as leaders and say, if we're going to teach people how to make money, let's teach them how to keep it too. Let's stop having people that look like they have money, that drive fancy cars, that live in big houses or all this good stuff, but they behind the 8 ball 3 years. They behind the 8 ball 4 years. They behind the 8 ball 5 years. Because there's a lot of people that are out there. There's a lot of leaders that are out there like that. There's a lot of people that got caught with their pants down, and it is not a good look. Just go ahead and set it aside every time you get paid. If you institute this discipline, every single week, if you institute it every single week, you're cool. But you got to be smart enough to institute it every single week and learn how to live off of not all of your money. Learn to live off of 30% of your money, 40% of your money. Because if you think about it, there's only 100 pennies in a dollar. So if there's only 100 pennies in a dollar, 30 of those pennies don't belong to you. You got 70 pennies left. You got 70 pennies left. Another 20 of it should be going between investments and savings. So now you got 50 pennies left. Maybe you got another 10 pennies going into, your church or whatever the case may be. Now you got 40 pennies left. You should be living on 30 to 40 pennies a month. 30 to 40 pennies out of the dollar. 30 to 40% of your money you should be living on. If you put yourself in a situation that you're making 10 grand a month in your network marketing company and you need $8,500 or $9,000 a month to live, you need to change your lifestyle and stop fronting. There is no future in fronting. There is zero future in fronting, okay? And now will be the most opportune time for you to get together. Because guess what? Majority of us are on lockdown. You got no need to front anyway. Okay, you ain't fronting in your cars and your clothes and your Louis Vuittons and your this and that. You're doing everything from Zoom and t-shirts and skirts, and half of y'all ain't got on no underwear when you do the doggone video. So if that's the case, ain't no future in fronting. Just be you. Just be you and say, you know what? I really don't need that car. You know what? I really don't need that house. You know what? I really don't need this. I really don't need that. I'm going to get it when I can afford it. Okay? And last but not least, listen, I don't care what accountant says what. Here's what I figured out. Here's what I figured out about life. Here's what I figured out about life. An accountant gets paid to do your numbers. That's what they get paid to do. So if they tell you, hey, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, and it's been 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you got to understand something. If you've had the same accountant for 6 years, but you ain't paid something for 4 years, and your accountant keeps saying, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, your accountant is not the one that has to pay the penalties and interest. You are. Your accountant isn't the one. Your accountant just knew you didn't have the bread. So it's like, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. They ain't called you yet, don't call them, okay? You gotta love that one, right? They ain't called you yet, don't call them. Again, just know it's in the system. It's there, it's there. And at some point, the truth will set you free. At some point, it's gonna come up. And I'm only speaking, ladies and gentlemen, from experience. Most networkers won't even have this conversation and speak from experience, okay? I got hit with those penalties of interest, and man, it was not fun. It was not fun because 1 year, they wiped it out. Then a couple years later, I did it again. Stupid, okay? I couldn't get around the penalties of interest at that point. I had to write the check, cut the check productions. And man, it is no fun when you got to cut a check with 2 digits in front of the comma because of penalties and interest, because you didn't have any discipline and you didn't set aside things as they were coming in. Don't get caught out like that, because ladies and gentlemen, if you get caught out like that and you keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, when that freaking boulder comes, it ain't no good. Now they're going to mess up your credit. Now they're going to put a lien on your house. Now they're going to do this. Now they're going to do that. And then for some of us out here that got a little cheese, we go to these tax sales and just pick up stuff pennies on the dollar. There's a whole lot of stuff that you can get from tax sales. A whole lot. You can get a whole $400,000 house at a tax sale for 10 G's. Real talk. You can get a whole $100,000 car at a tax sale for $25,000. Real talk. From people who got their stuff snatched away. And the bank is like, just give us the payoff. That's all we care. Just give us the payoff, man. We Gucci. Just whatever. And the auction guy just selling your shit. And you got to send your cousin or your sister there to go buy your stuff pennies on the dollar if they got the bread to do it. If they ain't got the bread to do it, you really SOL. So as I close out this Facebook Live, let's think about this. Be smart. It's not all about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. It's not all about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. The smartest networkers I know are the most disciplined networkers I know. And as an entrepreneur, there's something that you have to be good at, and that is discipline. Because you have to be disciplined to get up in the morning without somebody breathing over top of you. You got to be disciplined enough to work 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 5 hours a day, whatever the case may be, without a boss. You have to be disciplined enough to be on the phone at all nights of the hour. You have to be disciplined enough to send out those emails on a regular. You have to be disciplined enough to do those videos. You have to be disciplined enough to go through that personal development. You have to be disciplined enough to do all those things. So if you've got to be disciplined enough to do all those things, at least add the extra discipline when it comes down to keeping your bread. Add that discipline, because when you don't add that discipline, in the words of my mama, you, my friend, will be disciplined. With that being said, this is Cedrick Harris signing off in the flip-flop state that we call Florida. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being on this live. Whether you're on here live, recorded, whatever the case may be, I appreciate each and every one of you. If you got some value from this particular video, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat if you're thinking a little differently now. It's like, hold on, maybe I do need to go. Let me go open up this second account. Some of y'all just got paid today. I know it's Tuesday. There's a couple of companies that pay on Tuesday. Some of y'all just got paid today. Okay, you just got that $4,000 in your account, that $2,000 in your account, that $1,000 in your account. Don't you spend that money. Don't you blow all that bread. 70% of it is yours. Remember that. Might be a little more, might be a little less, but don't you burn it. So I appreciate you guys. Have a phenomenal day. Until the next time, go out there and make somebody smile today. You already know why, because they deserve it and so do you. Until the next time, deuces.